You're
Can't
doing fine.
believe what's happening.
You're doing fine. I know it's all of a shock. I know it's coming to you all at once. Okay?
I don't know who would do this.
Okay, well, it appears from what we've seen so far that someone intentionally hurt Daniel. Okay, intentionally. Okay, I don't
You
think.
don't know who it is.
No, and I don't
What if
think.
they come after the boys?
I don't think that's going to be. I have no indication at this time that that's a threat. Okay, but the boys are going to stay with you. You're not going to back over to Trescott. Okay.
No, I don't. I don't live there anymore.
I know you don't.
So a few things happen here. This is the first of many times that Wendi conveys her fear over the boys being injured or killed. Isom lays things out pretty clearly. He assures her that there is no indication that the boys are in any harm, and then immediately calls her out for just being at Trescott, making it very clear who he thinks the perpetrator of this crime might be. Wendi also mentions that she doesn't know who would do this. A very bizarre thing to say, since not knowing who committed the crime is a given. Of course you wouldn't know. The entire purpose of the investigation is finding out who did this. The only person who would need to emphasize that they don't know is someone who definitely does.
I don't know how I'm gonna tell them what happened.
And you know what,
They're so little.
and you know, it is difficult sometimes for little kids because their perception of reality is
They
different.
love their dad.
Of course they do.
Please make note that Wendi is crying so hard here, she's having to pull out multiple tissues from the pack. And the time is 4:02:08.
I'm sorry, you can ask me questions.
No, you're fine. Talk to me about what you want to talk to me about.
And less than 4 seconds later is recovered enough to be talking completely normally.
It's fine. I'll tell you what you
No, you're good though. Like, I want to be here for you too. Like, it's very shocking.
I just like I can't believe this is happening. I don't understand, and I'm very scared because if this can happen, like, what if someone's gonna come after the kids? Like, who did this, and why would they do this?
And from what they're missing, they haven't had any indications of that.
Do you think someone can watch the house where I'm gonna be with the kids tonight to make sure that nobody comes after us?
We'll discuss kind of that type of stuff. I'm gonna make sure that they know all your concerns and fears. Okay.
Here we are again. She's afraid someone is going to come after the boys and is in disbelief that this is happening.
I don't think that's good for the kids. Like, I don't want people. I don't know what to do about, like, the kids are really young. I don't know what to do in terms of that reaction, but I also am kind of scared that there's like some maniac out there, and I would like for you to find whoever that is, so I don't want to make things worse in some way in terms of you being able to find someone.
Okay.
That's all I'm asking.
Now there's a maniac out there, and she's concerned for the kids. Not to fear, Wendi. The maniac is in here.
I'm just worried about the kids, and I'm so sorry for his family.
His family. Okay, appropriate.
And for his children.
His children? Not my children or our children. His children. That's some pretty major distancing language. Both with his and children.
who are now gonna grow up without a father. And I have no idea who would do this, and I feel like they're out there. And if they're capable of this, like, what's to keep them from going after the kids? Like, if they hate Danny, then why wouldn't they hate his children?
If they hate Danny, why wouldn't they hate his children? Poured on real thick, Wendi.
And you know, they're doing this investigation now to kind of figure out what happened.
He didn't do it to himself. There's no way he did it. He never really got depressed. He never got that sad. You know, like, he was a really positive guy. Mm-hmm. It wasn't him.
I love how she's acting as if a self-unaliving is even an option. She's been told how many times now that this was a targeted attack against Danny.
Is the police officer still at school? Like, are the boys safe there right now?
I don't know the for sure answer to that, but I do know that they checked on them. And
I know they checked on them, but like, the kids, I just want to make sure they're okay.
Let me go talk and let me ask them that for you. Wendi, look at me.
I have always wondered how much the victim advocate knew beforehand, because I've always been curious if she tells her to look at her during this part to see if she has any real tears.
There's no reason for them to think that anything's going to happen to the boys right now, okay?
Okay.
And I just want you to know that there's no indications that...
But why would someone do this? Like, why wouldn't they just come after my whole family?
Here she is told yet again that there is no indication that the boys are in danger. Yet she insists that essentially the killer should have probably killed her whole family, i.e. the kids as well.
I do hear your concern. I do. I just want you to know, though, like, there's no, if there was an indication.
I mean, there's no indication some crazy person was gonna kill Danny, so why would they not think someone was gonna, like, anything could happen, right?
Like, anything could happen, right? Most mothers would never want to even fathom a circumstance in which their kids could be put in danger. And if they were really as worried as Wendi pretends to be, don't you think that they would insist on being with their children?
From what I understood, that there was someone that was at the school.
They didn't find anyone, like, running away to see him, did they?
I don't know that answer, okay? I'm sorry. I know I'm giving you a lot of I don't know.
I know, I'd rather that than you make something up, but I just have no idea what's happening right now.
I'm sorry.
And God, is it killing her not to know what the cops do.
Sorry.
Oh my God, I hate this woman.
Do you think whoever did this is going to come after the kids?
I'm very worried about that. And I think...
I don't want to be, like, left alone in that house. Like, I want protection. I'm scared. I don't know who this is. I don't...
Okay, well...
Again, making everyone aware that Wendi definitely, for sure, totally has no idea who could have done this. For realsies, though.
I mean, we just want to make sure you get someplace that you're comfortable, and you've already told me enough reasons that you feel like that maybe whoever did this.
I don't want to go home.
Right. So we're going home just to get the clothing, the computer, and then we can get you on to the other, I can't remember their names now.
Alan and Lynn.
Right.
I mean, be scared, I guess. But how far can one get away from themselves before they feel safe?
Trace the call. It's coming from inside the house. You hear me? It's coming from inside the house.
Is it good, like, should I be taking the kids to school when Monday comes around? Like, is it good to have, like, a routine for them?
School? You mean daycare? Because it's mid-July and your eldest has not even started kindergarten. I don't know, Wendi, it's Friday night. You're about to have to tell your babies that their dad was killed. maybe just spend some time with them on Monday? And for someone so concerned for their safety, you would think that she would not even want to let them out of her sight so soon. Or is that because you already know that the killers will be back in Miami by then?
I mean, it's up to if you want to keep that. And yeah,
Well,
something
I
maybe,
say it, and now I'm like, I don't want those kids away from me. Like, what if there's like a deranged gunman in town? Like,
And
Those kids? You don't want those kids out of your sight? That is some pretty serious distancing language there.
I feel like a fierce mama cat right now. Like, I just want to get to my boys. And I know they're fine with Alan and Lynn. Like, and I
point
think
that you want to hold them and
Oh
see
my
that they're
God.
okay with your own eyes. And
yeah, I really need to be with them.
Ugh, I rolled my eyes so hard when she said fierce mama cat that I'm pretty sure they're dislocated now.
if
I'd rather
anything,
be with Alan
have
than-
support.
Yeah.
And kind of a little bit of a distraction.
Yeah, it'd be nice just not to worry about like, I don't know, I'm just picturing like getting up and trying to like, you know, the kids being like, they're 3.5 and 5, right?
Mhm.
Like they'll wanna eat ice cream or do whatever, and like I don't have the energy to like impose any restrictions.
Right.
3 and 5-year-olds whose lives are about to change in such a fundamental and horrific way. Learning half of their world is gone forever. Just let them eat the damn ice cream for breakfast, Wendi.
I know.
And then, it's difficult time. They might not need those restrictions. And
Oh, those poor kids.
Those poor kids. Never in the history of ever have I referred to my children as those or the kids. Maybe if I'm talking about them while they're in a group of other kids who don't belong to me, I would say the kids. But referring to just the two of them together, always my boys or my babies. Especially in a situation like this, you'd think she would be using the closest, most protective language she could. You know, being a fierce mama cat and all.
What do you tell your children when their father is murdered? It's not like Daddy had
think you
cancer
tell-
and he's sick and he's he's around
I
for a
don't
long
think
time.
you tell them all that right away. And
No.
again, I'm not, I don't work with children very often.
Oh,
But I would tell them, just that, he was really hurt and he had to either, go to heaven, whatever kind of concept that they have on that.
I don't know how. I mean, I said like I don't know how much they get this, but
I
like
think
he
it's-
was fine. He was healthy.
Mhm.
He was strong. It's not like he was sick and they saw him get sick. Like
Well, and that's why you said he was hurt, because, and I know they don't understand this, but think of this, he could have gotten in a traffic crash or
they're gonna
something.
have questions though, and I don't want to lie to them.
Nope, not Wendi, pillar of truth and honesty Adelson.
I cannot tell a lie.
And you don't,
Like
And
I don't
then
want to
you
say
could-
he was hurt. How's he hurt? He felt like
well, you could then say something like, some very bad person harmed your dad, Do you think they're going to ask?
I don't want to. I
You
know
don't
I
wanna
have to say
expose them to
something,
that?
but like.
Well,
But they're
and
gonna be
then-
so scared. Like, what if the very bad person comes and harms me, and then they're gonna be orphans?
We'll talk
Cover, which you shouldn't, but we're gonna find out.
to, and again,
This is an absolutely horrific thing to imagine. And that's why I've avoided talking about it until now. But my theory is that Wendi maybe wanted those kids to be killed as well.
In the summertime, we have a week on, week off schedule with the boys. So we have week on, week off, but on Wednesdays we do an overnight.
Right. Where did the children sleep the night before? Have they been staying with Danny right along?
Yeah, except week on, week off, but with Wednesday overnights. So Wednesday night they were with me.
When you say Wednesday overnight, Wednesday.
It means like if it's a mommy week, then
Right.
they're with you all week, except Wednesday night they'd go to Danny.
Okay.
If it's a Danny week,
Right.
so they're with him all week, except Wednesday night they came to me.
So in the summertime, Wendy and Danny would do a week on, week off time schedule, alternating custody of the kids every week, and then spending the night at the other parent's house each Wednesday.
What was the child custody schedule when you were living at Aqua Ridge? And I assume Mr. Markell continued to live in the marital home on Trescott?
He did.
Okay, what was the custody situation with the kids?
So the custody situation changed over time and depending on the part of the year. But I think in the beginning, we would do a Wednesday night overnight. It was about 50-50 shared custody, but I don't remember the exact arrangement. I do remember in the summertime it would switch to week on, week off, but during the school year it was slightly different.
Who had your kids the morning that Mr. Markell was killed?
The kids were at preschool.
But I mean, at what home did they wake up that day?
That morning I think they were at Danny's house.
So the kids were with Danny at the time 2 hitmen were sent up to go murder him. But let's not forget, Garcia and Rivera did not go up only in July. They were also there the month before.
I want to ask you about the first trip. Do you know the date that you came to Tallahassee on the first trip?
The date. I can't remember, but no, I can't remember.
Okay, does June 4th through June 5th sound correct?
Yeah, it was around June. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
and that's of the year 2014, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so are you familiar with a traffic ticket that y'all got in the area of Gainesville on that first trip?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm going to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 81. You recognize State's 81?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that a fair and accurate copy of the traffic ticket that y'all received on this first trip to Tallahassee?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and this was in the car that was rented by Mr. Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
Who got the ticket?
I got the ticket.
All right. Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce into evidence case 81.
Any objection?
Not at all, Judge. Not Mr. Garcia.
No objection.
Be admitted.
What was the ticket for?
Speeding.
Okay, and so you were doing the driving, at least in the Gainesville area, is that right?
Yeah, we had switched for a minute, and he told me to drive.
All right. Do you know what time of day you arrived in Tallahassee on that first trip on June 4th?
In the morning, like around 5, 6 o'clock in the morning around there.
Okay. And would it refresh your memory to let you know this traffic ticket was received?
Let me see.
I'm going to draw your attention to the top right corner of this traffic ticket. Indicates that you received a ticket at 9:12 a.m. in Gainesville, Florida. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So June 4th, Garcia and Rivera make the drive from Miami to Tallahassee. And according to the time on the ticket, they should have arrived in Tallahassee between 11:30 and noon. Here's June 4th of 2014, a Wednesday. That Wednesday would have been on a Danny week, and Wendy would have had the kids that night only. And it seems like she knew that the killers were in town.
I want to ask you about June 4th, 2014. Do you recall a event that occurred that day that was unusual?
Yeah, I remember a couple of unusual occurrences on June 4th.
Could you tell us about that, please?
Yeah, I had met Miss Adelson at the Red Eye Coffee Shop in Midtown for a coffee about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We were going to talk about our relationship a little bit, and she canceled a trip we had planned to California to visit my parents, which was scheduled for July 11th to 17th.
All right. And was she acting strangely that night?
Yeah, that night she was a nervous wreck to the point, I couldn't put my finger on why at the time, to the point where she lived kind of way up Centerville where there's no convenience stores or anything close, and I actually took about 35 minutes and drove to a convenience store to get her Pepto-Bismol because she was such a nervous wreck and had a real nervous stomach that evening.
Okay. And did she ever tell you what the problem was?
No, she's very non-specific about it.
All right.
Prosecutor asked you about June 4th, 2014. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
And you said that you guys were at the Red Eye Coffee Shop, right?
That's correct.
And around what time was that?
I had a hair appointment at 2 or 3, so it was at 1 or 2.
And so in the early afternoon?
Could have been as early as 12:30, sir.
12:30,
yeah.
Okay. So around 12:30 on June 4th, 2014, correct?
That's correct.
You indicated that she was and by she I mean Wendi Adelson, that she was acting unusual?
That's correct.
Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes.
Did you ask her what was wrong?
I did ask her what was wrong. It was very non-specific. That happened with Wendi quite a bit with it, where she was upset and there was not an exact name put to why.
Was she upset often?
Yes.
Would she get these kind of physical reactions often, that her stomach would hurt or that she would ask you to get her medicine?
I got to know her better in the spring, so I saw more of it than I would have in the fall. That was the only time I can recall that was not an average thing. I think that's why I remember it, because it was unusual.
And you said that you drove about 35 minutes to get her medicine?
Yeah, it could have been 25, 35 minutes, but where she lived was not convenient to run to the store, so it was a discussion like, do we want to do that? It's all the way down there, and she was so nervous. I thought, no, I'm going. So.
Did she go with you?
No, she did not. She had the kids that night, so she stayed with the children.
Did she make any kind of doctor's appointments shortly thereafter, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
Let's go to something you said on direct talking about June 4th.
Yes.
And you appear to have a very good memory of all the instances. You said that Wendi had the kids on June 4th, the night of June 4th.
Yes.
You spent a lot of time with Wendi, spent a lot of time with the kids. You knew their daily schedule of the boys, right?
I knew not so much because I usually got there in the evening. So at the time, I would know what days she had the kids. But as far as pickup times and things like that, I usually saw them at the end of the day. I accompanied her just a couple times to pick up the kids. So I don't want to sound like I'm an expert in that because I'm not.
So June 4th, she has the kids. The next morning, June 5th, she would have taken them to Creative Preschool.
She would have, but I never stayed over there. So when the kids were there, so I wouldn't have known that because I left at the end of the night if the kids were there every time.
That would have been consistent with the custody setup that she had with Dan Marquette, correct?
Yeah, depending on what the days on the schedule were, which I don't recall. I used to know that. I don't anymore.
It wouldn't have been that he'd come and pick them up at her house and then bring them over to Creative Preschool.
I never saw that kind of scheduling anywhere.
So it would have been consistent with on June 5th, she would have dropped the kids off.
It would have been consistent, but I don't have any primary knowledge of what she did on June 5th.
So Wendi is so nervous the day the hitmen arrive. Jeffrey actually has to buy her Pepto-Bismol. And as we know, Katie was getting regular updates from Sigfredo as the day went on.
All right, so what was the purpose of the first trip?
We came to scope them out.
Okay, were you intending to commit the murder on the first trip?
It was supposed to, but we couldn't find them.
All right, so when y'all came to do the first trip, was any money exchanged?
Nah, he had money.
Who did?
Garcia.
How much money did he have?
He probably had, I think, from $2,000 or $5,000.
Between $2,000 and $5,000?
Yeah.
Okay, and did you know where he got the money from?
The money he got it from the people that hired him.
All right, and who is that? Did he tell you?
Nah, he didn't tell me yet.
Okay. Did he give you any money on this first trip?
Excuse me?
Did he give you any money for this first
He gave me
trip?
a couple of $100.
Okay. How many nights did you stay in Tallahassee on that first trip? If you remember.
I say like 2 nights.
All
2 or
right.
3 nights.
Where did y'all stay?
In a hotel.
Okay. And did you interact with a man by the name of Shadrach Nobles in the hotel?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that you came here to do the murder, but you couldn't find him. What did you mean by that?
We have followed him and we
Followed who?
Markel.
All right. Where'd you follow him to?
Follow him all the way to a daycare where we kept losing him.
Okay. Where did you follow him? When you say you followed him to the daycare, where did you start following him?
Like, we had stopped by a park and watched him come out of his house.
So you knew where his house was located?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you know where Mr. Markel's house was?
Garcia pointed his house to me.
Okay. Was that something that was written on the paper?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and you said you pulled into a park and waited for him. Where was the park?
I was in the corner by a light.
I'll show you what I marked as safety unit 47. You recognize States 47?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this a fair and accurate aerial map depicting where you parked that day waiting for Mr. Markel to follow him or scope him out?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, at this time I'd ask to introduce States 47.
Any objection?
No objection from Mr. Garcia.
No objection.
Be admitted. You may.
Mr. Rivera, does this yellow dot here indicate where you and Mr. Garcia waited?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and had you already seen Mr. Markel's home before you parked here?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and when he pulled out, did he pull out down this road right here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when you're talking about the light, are you talking about this intersection?
Yes.
All right, tell me where you followed him. If he came down this way, where did y'all go?
Pulled right behind him and he went straight.
Straight down through this light?
Yes, ma'am.
Even after adjusting the picture to better show the map, it's still pretty hard to see. Here's a Google Map image. The arrow's pointing to Dan's house, and right there is the park that they were waiting at. You can see here, this is the intersection of Trescott and Benton, where they saw Dan drive out of.
And is that when you followed him to the area of the daycare?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and when you say you lost him, where and how did you lose him?
He had pulled up into the daycare. By the time we made a circle, I guess he had pulled out and left. So we kept losing him.
All right, and when you talk about following Mr. Markel to the daycare on this first trip, who was driving when you all followed him to the daycare?
Garcia.
All right. You mentioned going by Mr. Markel's residence. Can you tell the jury exactly what kind of scoping out y'all did of Mr. Markel's residence on this trip?
Just driving through to see if we see his car, to see if there was somebody in the house, but we never got to see his car.
Did you ever pull around behind the house or go anywhere besides other than driving right in front?
Yeah, we went around the house.
Okay. Did you get out of the car?
No, ma'am.
Did Mr. Garcia get out of the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about that.
He got off, went behind the house, tried to see if somebody was in the house.
Who was supposed to be the shooter on this first trip?
I was going to be the shooter.
Did you make a suggestion to change the plan from shooting to something else?
Yeah, I found out for the kids, I ain't gonna shoot nobody in front of no kids.
All right. When you saw Mr. Markel on the first trip, did he have his kids with him?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Why didn't the murder get done on the first trip? Is it because...
We lost him.
Okay. Did you ever observe Mr. Markel on the first trip where he was, I guess, separated from his children?
Excuse me?
Did you ever see him where he was in his car in his home and the kids were not around that first trip?
Nah, he always had his kids.
All right. You mentioned you learned along the way that you were coming to do a murder, not a robbery. Was that on the first trip?
First trip.
Okay. So you learn along the way you're going to do a murder. Was the purpose of the first trip to scope out the place, to do the murder, or something else?
To scope the place out.
Okay, and what did you do to scope the place out?
We sit near his house by a park for a little bit.
In whose house?
Marquez.
Markel's?
Markel.
Okay, and what did y'all do? Drive around the house?
I drove around the house first. We drove around it. We went around the block like twice, and then we sit by a park for a little bit, washed out, and then went to the hotel, and then the next morning did the same thing, and then following him to see where he was going to.
If there had been an opportunity to kill Dan Markel on that first trip, would y'all have done it on the first trip?
Yes.
All right, and why were you not able to accomplish the murder on the first trip?
He was with the kids.
You didn't want to kill him with the kids in the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there a particular plan as far as who was going to actually do the murder?
I was supposed to do it.
Okay, and was it always going to be a shooting?
It's going to be a shooting.
What was the plan? Were you always going to do it in his car, or what? Was there any kind of plan?
No, there wasn't no plan. Really didn't plan nothing out.
So it was just going to be, if an opportunity arose, you were going to take it?
If there was opportunity, we do what we got to do and go.
What if an opportunity arose when the children were present?
Probably not doing that in front of the kids.
Okay.
Not me.
Did somebody instruct you on that, or that was just a given that you weren't going to do it?
I was not going to do it, period.
Okay.
You testified earlier that you didn't want to kill Markel during the first trip because he had his kids, right?
Yes, sir.
And you told Sigfredo that during the first trip.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't want to do it in front of the kids.
I believe so.
Let's thank God that Luis was a decent enough person not to kill Dan while his kids were present. And please make note, he didn't refrain from that after being instructed not to. He was just thankfully a good enough person not to want to hurt the kids that way. But it's not like Wendi knew the difference, though. And honestly, one would have to assume if you're finding people who are willing to kill your ex-husband without even knowing him, I don't think it's that much of a stretch to assume that maybe they wouldn't give a damn about killing the kids as well. And it's not like they had special instructions to wait until he was home, wait until the kids weren't with him. They could have easily shot him with the kids in the car, and the kids could have been injured in several different ways. Mainly, they could have also been shot. Without knowing how many gunmen were going, what types of weapons they were using, etc., there would have been no way of preventing something like that from happening. Dan could have been shot while driving the car and gotten into an accident, which could have killed the children. He could have been stationary at a stoplight and gotten shot, which could have potentially taken his foot off the brake, rolled him into traffic, and could have also killed the children. The fact that there was zero precautions taken to prevent any harm coming to the kids, and the fact that the hitmen were sent up there not once, but twice on Danny's weeks with the kids is absolutely mind-blowing. I would never have my ex-husband killed, because I'm not some psychotic monster. But if I did, you can bet that my kids would be nowhere near there. Out of all the witnesses in this case, I find Luis Rivera's to not only be one of the most helpful, but also one of the most believable accounts of what happened that day. And hearing his concern and self-restraint for the sake of the kids was refreshingly wholesome. In fact, Luis seemed to be the only one who was actually bothered by the death of Dan Markel.
I even woke up one day, I was in my house drinking. I ain't tell you this though. I was in my house drinking one day and I was so mad I was thinking about the murder. And it was just hitting me. And then he came to my house. Jessica called him, yo, come over here and calm this nigga down. I don't know what's wrong with him. He came and told me, chill out, man, stop thinking about that shit. I said, man, it ain't even that, man. Like, I ain't do it. How the fuck can you walk around here like that? Something that you did and you got here, like everything is all right. I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about that man and them kids. Like, it really hurted me, man. It really do.
It gave me just a little bit of solace knowing that someone involved in this crime felt some remorse. But there was something else he said that made my blood run cold.
Back up a little bit further. You said they gave him $5,000. Tell us about that. What did he say? Where did he get the money from?
Oh, he said he got the money from the lady. He still haven't told me her name yet. He said, I got the money from the lady. Well, his wife gave him the money. So Katie gave him the money. But he told me about the lady. He told me, yo, the lady got the money. She gonna pay us. So, all this driving around and talking to him about the money, I told him, we should just go rob her. That was my intention. Fuck this guy. I don't got nothing against that guy. I don't even know that guy. Especially after he told me about what was it for the 2 kids. Told me because I asked him, why are you going to kill this guy? Because the lady wants her 2 kids back. She wants full custody of them kids. Because he had all the custody. That was the plan. That was the deal. That's what I went to go kill that man for.
And how did Tuda know all this?
Katie, I guess Katie told him everything. Ain't nobody questioning us. Ain't nobody gonna question me. Ain't nobody even. I think that they didn't even know I was going in the ride unless the only one that knew was Katie. She knew I was in that car.
How did she know that?
Because he told her. He told her, I'm going with Tato. They call me Tato. So I think I'm going with Tato. So I said, I asked him who knows. He goes, no, it's just Katie. I said, that lady knows I'm in the car. He's like, nobody knows, just Katie. But in my instance, I didn't trust him that day. I'm like, somebody else gotta know. Because if you told Katie, Katie had to tell that lady. Because, that day that they murdered, when I seen Wendi, that's when I asked him, who's that lady? And he said, that's Wendi. I remember I clear as day with them 2 boys. Because we got there at 10 o'clock at night, 10 to 11 o'clock at night, went to the hotel, we're hanging out, we're just chilling. I said, man, I'm going to go to sleep, I got to get rest, because if you're going to have me watch this guy all day tomorrow, I got to get rest. So I try to fall asleep. He was still awake doing coke. I went to sleep. The next day, it was Thursday. The next day we drove around there. I ran around the block. I went around the block to the other park behind his house. He said, pull in here real quick, let me go see if he's home. So we pulled in. He walked over there, he looked, came back, he's like, go around the house. He said he seen something, but he wasn't too sure if it was somebody. So when I go around the front of the house, that I come back like this. So I'm driving this way. Wendy's walking this way with the 2 kids. So I'm driving. Before I get to the bump, I'm looking to my rearview mirror and I ask Garcia, man, what's up with this lady? Why is she looking so much? He's like, oh, that's that lady. That's Wendi. I'm like, oh, that's her name. I said, well, so I'm like, okay, I seen the 2 kids. I said, what's she doing up here? What is she doing up here? Oh no, that she came to make sure that everything's alright because he's leaving out of town tomorrow. So it's gotta get done tomorrow morning before he leaves. I'm like, alright, we leave.
We go back to the hotel.
Let me interrupt you for a minute. Was there ever a phone call from anyone around the time that you saw who he described to be?
When she walked, as I'm looking at the rear mirror, I seen her walk a little bit further from her house, get on the phone. By the time we get to the hotel, he's talking to Katie. That's when he asked Katie, what's she doing up here? You know? But I asked him in the car before Katie called, what is she doing up here? She came up here to see if everything's all right with the kids. I said, man, you gotta know something besides that shit. What this lady's doing up here? And she knows that we're up here. She knows you're up here. So what's she doing up here? So when he calls Katie. Hey, what's going on? I seen this lady over here. Oh no, she's making sure that everything is fine. That what time he's leaving tomorrow on the flight or where the fuck he was going. I said, so we gotta do this tomorrow, huh? He's like, yeah, cause he's leaving, and she came to see the kids. But I seen her face and everything. I'm like, all right. So I'm like, we drive. We're going back to the hotel. I'm sitting down. I'm sitting down on the chair in the hotel, and he's looking like, you all right? No, I'm just curious what the fuck this lady's doing up here. Yeah, don't worry about that shit. Everything good, man. She just made sure that everything was all right. I said, I don't really like the sound of this shit, but whatever. If you say everything's all right, I trust you because I just trust you. I trust you because you're my dog. You don't worry about it, man. Here, man, take a drink. Like, man, it was early in the morning. It was 12. I'm like, man, I'm good. I don't want to fucking drink.
So this all happened before 12 noon?
Yeah, before 12.
On Thursday?
On Thursday.
You drove by, you saw her walking the kids. You ask him, he says that's Wendi. She's making sure that we're going to do this or whatever.
That she wanted to make sure that we was up there. She thought that we were lying, that he was lying. Because they don't even know I'm in the car until she seen me that day.
Yeah, but your car's got tinted windows. Does she even know what kind of car you guys are in?
That car, it's not even tinted. Like, you can see through it. It's like, you can see it. It's tinted, but not dark like people think.
Right, but she wouldn't know you from Adam's house. She wouldn't know you from anybody.
Yeah, she don't know me from anybody. But you can see, you got a little short guy in a car like this, I'm driving like this, and you see Garcia. Garcia's on the passenger side. You know, so she looked and then he looked. Like, you know, that's what caught my attention. Like, what's up with this lady looking at the car? She didn't know she wanted to make sure that we was up here. I guess Katie had told him everything. And then he called Katie. I remember leaving that day when we left. He called Katie. Yo, everything all right with this lady? She's like, yeah, everything's straight. Don't worry about it. Just make sure you get that shit done.
You hear that?
Yeah,
or he tells you that?
No, I can hear her talking on the phone.
You're in the car or in the motel room?
No, I'm in the car. We're still in the car. We got pulled up. Every time before we go in the hotel, we sit in the car for like 10 minutes. We don't go, we just don't go in, because I'm sitting down like, yo, you see that camera right there? You know, it's facing that way. You see that one over there? Yeah, man, how you see all this shit? I said, because look at that camera over there, man. I tell him, yo, you gotta start drinking, man, before you can pay attention.
So you hear her voice saying that she's, he recognizes her without question. He doesn't have to ask.
He don't even gotta ask. He didn't even have to call and ask none of this shit. He already knew.
He's already saying, why is Wendi here?
Yeah. No, I asked him why she's up here.
And then he relays to her on the phone
he relays to her why she came up here for.
Okay.
That's the conversation.
So it's not a question of if it's Wendi. He already knows it's Wendi.
Oh, he already knows it's Wendi.
And he's telling Katie, why is Wendi here?
To make sure that he was up here, make sure he wasn't lying, that she was just paying him for nothing but.
So Tudo's met Wendi.
Yeah, I think he did. Matter of fact, I ain't even gonna answer that right there, because I'm not 100%.
Okay.
Did you know Wendi?
No, not at all.
You ever seen her before?
Just that day. That day I seen her, that Thursday. I'm not upset. I never met her, I never seen her. I don't know if he met her or he knows, but I know he said that's Wendi. I'm like, all right.
Okay. All right. And Katie says she wants to make sure that you guys are.
And we make sure that we was up there.
And you heard her voice say that?
Yes, sir.
You woke up on Thursday, July 17th. What happened that day?
Woke up, took a ride towards Markel's house. It's that Thursday morning.
and we went around the house. So we went around the house, we came back around, and we seen a lady walking through.
Mm-hmm. Where was the lady?
She was towards my right-hand side, towards his house. Markel's
Towards
house.
whose house? Towards Markel's house?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was she in the street, on the sidewalk, or
Sidewalk.
something else? Okay. Did she have children with her?
Yes, ma'am, too.
All right. What happened when you saw this lady? Did she see you?
Yeah, she looked dead at the car. I was driving, and as I looked in my rear mirror, I seen her looking.
Mm-hmm.
So
What happened next?
I asked Garcia, what's up with this lady? Was she looking at the car? Yeah, that's that lady with the kids, man.
So you asked Garcia, hey, who's this lady that's looking at the car?
Yes, ma'am.
And he said, that's the lady with the kids.
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you take that to mean?
That's the lady that wanted the kids.
The lady that wanted you to do this job?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And were you worried about seeing her there?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you worried about her seeing you there?
Of course.
Were you concerned? Did you ever ask Garcia, who knows that I'm involved in this job with you?
I can't remember.
Can't remember that?
No.
Okay. What did you do once you see this lady and Garcia tells you that's the lady that wants this job done?
We drove off. We left.
Okay. Did Garcia make a phone call about seeing the lady?
Well, I'm looking to the rear mirror, and I seen her making a phone call. I seen
Okay.
her getting on the phone.
The lady that you saw on the sidewalk?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then y'all drove off?
We drove off.
Okay. And did Mr. Garcia, after seeing that and driving off, did he make any phone calls?
After we done bent like the corner, he got on the phone.
All right. And who did he get on the phone with?
I believe he got on the phone with Katie.
How do you know it was Katie he got on the phone with?
Because she, like, the way he was talking, it's only her. He only talks to her.
All right. And what do you mean the way he was talking? How are you able to tell?
Like, when he spoke to her, she like, y'all get out of there. The lady just seen y'all.
All right. And so y'all were worried about this lady having seen you?
Oh, I was worried.
You were?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And were you able, you said that you believed Garcia called Katie. Could you actually hear her, or you could only hear his end of the conversation?
I'm hearing his end of the conversation right now.
All right. And tell us about his end of the conversation. What did you hear?
He like, we just gotta go. Like, let's get out of here.
Okay. Did you learn anything about Mr. Markel planning to leave town?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
We had to get the job done because he was supposed to leave that Friday morning.
How did you know that?
Garcia told me.
And how did he know that?
Katie told him.
And when Katie told him that, was that something that happened while you were present, or something that he already knew before y'all arrived there?
No, I was present. I was in the car.
All right, I want to back you up and ask you about a few things that happened the second trip. You've talked about seeing the lady, or seeing who you believe was Wendi Adelson. Can you tell the jury about that?
Well, it was the day before.
Day before the killing?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, tell us about that.
I was scoping the house, and I was scoping the house, and we leaving. She was walking the sidewalk with two kids.
And that was on the road where Markel lived?
Yes, ma'am.
All
A couple of houses down from his house.
Okay. And were you driving at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
What did the lady do when you saw her?
She looked at the car and got on the phone right away. Made a phone call.
Okay. And how did you know that the lady, or why did you think that the lady was Wendi Adelson?
Let's ask Garcia, why is she looking at the car like that? Yeah, that's her. That's the lady.
Okay. So you believe that to be Wendi Adelson?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
So Rivera claims to have seen Wendi the day before the murder near Dan's house. And very shortly after he sees her, Sigfredo Garcia confirms with Katie that Wendi just saw them. They also learn from Katie that Wendi was just there to check to see if the job had been done yet, and provided them with a new piece of information, which was that Dan was leaving the following day on a trip, and the job had to be done by Friday the 18th, which they would have had no other way of finding out had it not been through Katie via Wendi. Now, there's a few parts that I want to touch on. The first being why Wendi may have been so paranoid that the job wasn't going to be actually done. We, of course, know that there were 2 trips by Rivera and Garcia up to Tallahassee, the first one in June being a failed attempt. But what is also highlighted in the TPD investigative reports is that there was a potential other failed attempt by hitmen who were hired prior to Garcia and Rivera. And in that instance, not only was Danny not killed, the hitmen never even went to do the job. I received a message via email on January 3rd, 2019, referencing an inmate, Nicholas Atteridge. I returned the call to Angela Frink, an attorney who is acquainted with Atteridge. Ms. Fink stated that Atteridge wanted to provide a statement regarding his conversation with fellow inmate Sigfredo Garcia while they were housed together in the L pod of the Leon County Jail. It should be noted that I attempted to interview Atteridge previously. During my interview with another inmate, Jason McNair, on December 20th, 2016, McNair had referred to a second inmate that had conversations with Garcia while in L pod. McNair said the second inmate was Nick and thought his last name was similar to Aldridge. I conducted a search of inmates and found Atteridge was possibly the person that McNair was referring to. On a subsequent jail visit, the last week of December 2016, I met with Atteridge in the D-Pod conference room. He appeared to be groggy and sleep-deprived. I asked about any conversations that he had with Garcia while they were together in L-Pod. Atteridge portrayed suspicion in my inquiry and asked if McNair had named him. I acknowledged that McNair had stated that Nick was present when Garcia made incriminating statements in the L-Pod. On January 25th, 2017, Sergeant Pat Sanford and I went to LCJ to contact Atteridge in the D-Pod conference room. I reminded Atteridge that I had previously attempted to interview him the last week of December 2016. He acknowledged the visit and said he had not slept for several days because his cases were pending plea agreements at that time, and he thought my inquiry was about other criminal activity that he was part of previously or while in custody at LCJ. He went on to say that he had just left a visit with his attorney before coming to the conference room to see us and had signed a sentencing agreement for his charges wherein he would eventually be transferred to a state prison. Atteridge expressed his willingness to provide information on his interaction with Sigfredo Garcia while they were in L-Pod at LCJ. After some conversation regarding his time spent in L-Pod and interaction with Garcia, it was apparent Atteridge was familiar with participants and events in the murder conspiracy. Atteridge agreed to have his statement audio recorded. And guys, I tried to get this audio, but they're not releasing it yet. During the interview, I reminded Atteridge, since his sentence had been determined prior to our interview, that there would be no consideration for his testimony, to which he agreed. In summary, Atteridge had 2 significant conversations with Garcia regarding the murder. The first was when Garcia learned co-defendant Luis Rivera had accepted a plea in exchange for testimony. After getting drunk on homemade alcohol, Atteridge referred to as toilet wine, Garcia began complaining to inmates by saying Rivera had waited in the car while Garcia shot Markel and Rivera had supplied the gun used in the murder. The second conversation occurred when Garcia found out that Catherine McBanoa had been arrested. Once again, Garcia got drunk and said he wanted to get word out to McBanoa to testify against himself and the Adelsons. Atteridge asked Garcia how much he had gotten paid for the murder. Garcia never gave a monetary amount, but stated that McBanoa got breast enhancement and Garcia and Rivera got toys, referring to motorcycles and cash. Atteridge went on to say he understood from Garcia that McBanoa brought the murder plot to Garcia, telling him her ex-boyfriend's mother wanted the murder to happen and paid for it to be completed. After the conclusion of the initial recorded interview, Atteridge stated that he wanted to add some information. I activated the audio recorder again, and he provided the additional information, which concerned Garcia, stating his money would stop being sent to LCJ since McBanoa was arrested herself. The money was for the murder payment, according to Garcia, via Atteridge. He stated that the information he provided was directly from Garcia, and he understood that he may be called to testify in court. A copy of the audio recordings will be submitted to the SAO, and this case remains open active. On December 13th, 2016, I was notified that the State Attorney's Office, SAO, had received a letter from Jason McNair, an inmate at the Leon County Jail. The letter was addressed to the Queen herself, Ms. Georgia Kappelman, the best assistant state attorney ever in the history of ever, prosecuting the Markel homicide. McNair stated in the letter that he had a lot of information on Garcia and McBanoa, who were co-defendants in the Markel murder. McNair stated in the letter that he would be willing to provide the information. LCJ records indicate McNair was in the same housing pod, L, as Garcia from September 12th of 2016 to October 10th of that same year. I went to LCJ on December 20th, 2016 to conduct an interview with McNair, who is now housed in Pod J. McNair was summoned to a conference room for the J Pod, where he and I conversed in a closed room. McNair provided some of his background and stated that he was in the L Pod with Garcia in September and October of 2016. He was asked to describe the setting and stated that there were usually 96 inmates in the pod, with 2 inmates assigned to each individual cell. Aside from lockdown at night or when inmates were transferred in and out of the pod, the inmates were allowed access to the other cells and the common areas of the pod. On an unknown date, sometime after McBanoa's arrest, which was October 1st, 2016, Garcia began talking to McNair and the other inmates about the murder and how he became involved in carrying out the crime. Garcia said he was offered the task by his ex-girlfriend and the mother of his children. McNair and Garcia referred to the woman by her last name that McNair knows starts with an M. McNair does not know why Garcia did this when telling this account, as McNair knows the woman's first name is Katie. Garcia told him that another woman named Dawn asked Katie about having someone killed for money. McNair and Garcia also referred to this woman as Dawn Adelson, who is a mother-in-law or a grandmother that wanted the man killed to get custody of 2 children. Garcia also said Dawn had paid other people $50,000 up front to commit the murder, but they did not do so. This time, Dawn told Katie that she would pay $5,000 up front for expenses and then $100,000 when it was done. Why would they kill Dan if you gave them all the money up front? They have the money and then they're not going to get a murder charge on top of it. How dumb can you be, Donna? As this information became pertinent to the case, I asked McNair if he would agree to have the conversation audio recorded. He agreed to the recording, and I activated a digital recorder for the remainder of the interview. In addition to the above information, McNair provided the following information, which was audio recorded. Rivera was enlisted to drive a car for the murder and was paid part of the $100,000. Rivera did not know that the trip was for a murder initially, and there were 2 trips made to commit the murder, the first being a blank trip. He also knew that the murder occurred at a house in a garage. Garcia said that he was the actual shooter, but he did not say how many times he fired. The gun was purchased for $150 in Miami. Katie either bought it herself or provided the money to purchase the gun. Upon returning to Miami, Katie obtained the money from the Adelsons, with Garcia getting $45,000, Rivera getting $35,000, and Katie $20,000 to $25,000. Garcia bought a motorcycle and 2 cars with his share of the money. McNair claims that this is independent information that he received directly from Garcia, and he is willing to testify in court. McNair did not ask for any consideration prior to providing his statement, and nothing was promised or suggested before or after the interview. This audio recording has also been provided to the SAO, and this case remains open active. 2 inmates confirmed that Garcia discussed the involvement of the Adelsons in this murder-for-hire plot. Jason McNair divulged even more information, saying that there was a failed attempt prior to Rivera and Garcia being hired, where Donna prepaid 2 hitmen who decided to not even attempt the hit, which should absolutely be no surprise to anyone with half of a brain, because why would you risk going to prison for life when you already have the money in your pocket? Really, I would have not been shocked if Donna had called the cops to report that the hitman stole $50,000 from her without completing the promised service. I've already filed a Better Business Bureau complaint, but I'd also like to report a crime. Let's also remember that this is the same woman that more than likely was the one behind trying to wash her prints and DNA off of their blood money. So based on that, it would kind of make sense as to why Wendi would be worried about this job getting done, which would be a corroborating piece of evidence backing up Rivera's claims of seeing her the day before the murder. I think another piece of supporting evidence that Rivera and Garcia saw Wendi the morning before the murder is their learning of Dan leaving town the following day. How else would they have gotten that information?
Was there a reason that the murder had to get done on the day it did?
It was just the right thing, the right opportunity, I guess.
Okay, did you have any information that the victim was going to be leaving town the day after the homicide occurred?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, meeting.
Is the answer struck?
The answer is not struck. You need to rephrase your question.
All right, so how did you find out that the victim was leaving town the following day?
I can't remember that good.
Was it from a blog?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
It's not leading, Your Honor.
Roll.
Was it from a blog?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what blog was that?
The blog was Wendi.
No, I was saying from the computer. Did you research it on the computer? No. Okay, so somebody gave you the information.
Yeah, somebody else.
A person.
A person.
And how did you actually talk to the person?
No, ma'am.
Who talked to the person?
Tuto. Garcia.
Garcia talked to the person.
Talked to Katie.
Right. Okay, so Garcia got the information from Katie.
Yes, ma'am.
And do we know where Katie got it from?
I don't know.
Okay, were you present when Garcia talked to Katie and found out we got to do it today?
Yes, ma'am. He was on the phone.
I'm sorry?
They was on the phone speaking.
He was talking to Katie on the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were present for that?
I was in the car.
Luis testified to the fact that he saw Wendi the day before the murder in all 3 trials. However, during Charlie Adelson's trial, Dan Rashbaum did his very best to try to alter the timeline and confuse the jury.
During the second trip, the day before the murder, you drove by Professor Markel's house. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And you testified that at some point after you arrived at Markel's house, after noon on the 17th, you saw a woman and 2 kids walking on Trescott by the house,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And the woman looked at you as the Prius passed and immediately got on her phone.
Yes, sir.
You testified that you asked Sigfredo what was up with the lady. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And Sigfredo responded that that's her. That's the guy's wife. That's the one that wants the kids back.
Yes, sir.
You asked Sigfredo what the lady was doing there on Trescott with the kids.
Yes, sir.
And Sigfredo responded that she came there to make sure that everything was all right.
Absolutely.
Meaning all right with the plan.
Yes, sir.
As you sit here now, you're aware that the woman and the kids on the street was not the same lady, right?
I don't know if that was her or not, but she looked at my car.
It's possible that Sigfredo lied to you, right?
Who knows?
First off, look at his smug little face right here.
Was not the same lady, right?
He really thinks he did something there. Too bad that's not at all what he said, like, ever.
It was early in the morning. It was 12. Like, man, I'm good. I don't want to fucking drink.
So this all happened before 12 noon?
Yeah, before 12.
On Thursday?
On Thursday.
You drove by, you saw her walking the kids. You asked him, he says that's Wendi.
Rivera never said this occurred in the afternoon. He stated that this occurred first thing in the morning. A statement that is backed up by the fact that they arrived to Danny's house every morning before he even left to take the boys to preschool. As Wendi testified to in my last video in this series, the kids would normally be dropped off between 8 and 9 a.m., and the daycare was about 15 minutes drive from Dan's house. The school drop-off pickup schedule was stipulated to in Charlie's trial. A piece of information that was also included in the report that I received from the Tallahassee Police Department.
Are you now aware that there was a first attempt on your ex-husband's life on June 4th and June 4th, 5th of 2014?
Yes.
When you lived with Professor Markel on Trescott, was your address publicly listed?
I believe so.
Markel children?
Very well.
Do you need a copy, Your Honor?
I have it right here. I'm just bringing up instruction 2.3. Members of the jury, when the parties agree that certain facts are true, that is called a stipulation of fact, you must accept stipulated facts as having been proven. However, the significance of these facts, as with all facts, is for you to decide. In this case, the stipulated facts that you must accept are true are: the Markel children were enrolled at Creative Preschool located in Tallahassee. During the week of July 14th, 2024, their drop-off pickup schedule was as follows. Monday, July 14th, 2024, dropped off at 8:55 a.m. by Dan Markel, picked up at 5 p.m. by Dan Markel. Tuesday, July 15th, 2014, dropped off at 8:25 a.m. by Dan Markel, picked up at 4:50 p.m. by Dan Markel. Wednesday, July 16th, 2014, dropped off at 9 a.m. by Dan Markel, picked up at 4:30 p.m. by Wendi Adelson. Thursday, July 17th, 2014, dropped off at 8:30 a.m. by Wendi Adelson, picked up at 4:45 p.m. by Dan Markel. Friday, July 18th, 2014, dropped off at 8:50 a.m. by Dan Markel.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I want to first focus your attention on the July 17, 2014 schedule. On July 17, 2014, as Your Honor just recited, do you recall dropping the kids off at school at 8:30 in the morning?
Yes.
And Professor Markel picked them up at 4:45 p.m. on that day, thereabouts.
Which I just heard, but I wouldn't have known what time.
You didn't pick them up that day.
No, it wasn't my day.
So it would be impossible, the person would be wrong if they said that they saw you and the kids by Professor Markel's house in the afternoon or morning of July 17, 2014, correct?
It would be some other woman and some other kids.
Now, here's where this becomes super misleading. And even Rashbaum messes up here, so follow me very closely. I'll admit, when I first heard this portion of the trial, I pretty much marked off Rivera's sighting as a case of mistaken identity. To me, it sounded like the judge was backing up Dan Rashbaum and saying that it would have been impossible for Wendi to have been on Trescott when Rivera claimed to have seen her. Except, this is not what he says at all.
Members of the jury, when the parties agree that certain facts are true, that is called a stipulation of fact, you must accept stipulated facts as having been proven. However, the significance of these facts, as with all facts, is for you to decide.
The stipulated fact is that the kids were dropped off and picked up from school at the time stated by the judge. The significance of that fact is up to the jury and us to decide. Basically, those drop-off and pickup times are not being debated, but the relevance they have to the case and the movements and whereabouts of Wendi Adelson are still very much up for discussion. Now, let's go back to the question that Dan asks immediately after the stipulation was read. And pay very close attention to his speech pattern.
So it would be impossible, the person would be wrong if they said that they saw you and the kids by Professor Markel's house in the afternoon or morning of July 17, 2014, correct?
It would be some other woman and some other kids.
Now, Rashi's normal speech pattern is very staccato and somewhat broken up normally, but the pause after impossible and after morning are both unusually long. And if we notice, he corrects himself after he says the word impossible. And I don't think he meant to say morning either. The other words he takes a moment after, and they're only 1-second pauses. The pause after impossible is 2.5 seconds long, and the pause after morning is 3 seconds long, very clearly showing that he misspoke on both of those points. Because it is not impossible for Wendi to have been by Danny's house with the children the day before the murder. And even with the drop-off schedule being set in stone, that has nothing to do with anything, as I believe this incident happened prior to their drop-off. Think about it. Danny was dropping the kids off at daycare between 8 and 9 every morning. And as we have already learned, the daycare was a 13-minute drive from his house. So for Garcia and Rivera to even be able to facilitate a proper surveillance of Danny, they would have to get a pretty early morning start. We can assume that for the boys to get dropped off at 8:30 a.m., Danny would have had to leave his house not too much later than 8 a.m. But we actually don't even have to assume this, because Luis tells us himself.
Yeah, when I got to the room, we were doing drugs. We had powder, we had beer, but we had a bottle. We had a bottle in the pocket. We was drinking. We had powder. We was chilling all night. I probably went to sleep at around 3. I woke up around 7 that morning. I think it was 7 o'clock the next morning. But when we got there by that time, we slept for a little bit. Our checkout was at 11. We leave. Went by Markel's house. Went around him. Went straight to his house. I parked by the park like I showed you. I parked there for a little bit to see if he was going to come out. When he came, I seen the car. I'm the one that scoped the car. I'm like, yo, that's that guy right there. I seen a white male in the car. He's like, yeah, that's him. Let's follow him. So we followed him all the way to the school. He dropped the kid off. Boom. I lost him. I guess he was going to the gym in that morning, but.
How do you know what kind of car he's driving?
Because Sigfredo told me the car.
Sigfredo told you the car?
He said he got a black Nissan.
Okay.
No tints. You will see him. Because he already showed me the picture.
Here he was talking about the first day of the June trip. However, it makes sense that they would keep their surveillance schedule pretty much unchanged to avoid missing Dan leaving in the morning. Meaning they would have likely seen Wendi well before 8 a.m., giving her more than enough time to make it to preschool by the confirmed 8:30 drop-off time on Thursday morning. Jeffrey Lacasse also said something interesting in his interview that, to me, confirms the notion of her taking walks on Trescott.
She sent this document and said she had compiled every email, like between Danny and Wendi for like a year and a half. And the idea was to make this legal case that Danny is harassing her and stalking her. She always goes to this. She told me Danny was a stalker because he looked out the window one time and saw her walking down the street without the kids, and he goes, "Where are my kids? I have right of first refusal. If you don't have the kids, I should have the kids." Wendi claimed that was stalking because he said, So anyway.
And to me, this doesn't seem like he would have seen her at the university, because one could assume that they would both be working at that time, and he would neither have the capacity to watch the kids nor the expectation that she would be watching them while she's working. So it really only makes sense that she would have been walking down Trescott Drive in front of his house on the weekend or some other time where they were both off. So I fully believe that Luis saw exactly who he thought he saw the morning before the murder. And I fully believe that Wendi got right on the phone with Charlie saying they've got to get this done by tomorrow before he leaves. Information that he then relayed to Katie, who in turn passed it on to Sigfredo. And based off that prior failed attempt, or lack of attempt, I think that would make Wendi feel like she had to keep a better eye on these two hitmen.
Mr. Rivera, the defense characterized a lot of things that Garcia told you as lies. Do you know that those things were lies?
No.
So when he said, "Oh, that's the lady, she's looking at us," do you know if he really thought it was the lady or not?
No, it was the lady.
He thought it was the lady, right?
It was the lady.
Okay.
It was her.
All right. And
I really can't get over how petrified Charlie looks the entire time Rivera is on the stand. And my absolute favorite part of Luis Rivera's testimony is when he stares at Charlie during an entire sidebar, and Charlie just sits there like prey on the Serengeti.
are you on the prof's blog server list?
No.
Can we just come sidebar for one moment?
I would. Okay.
Daddy Rashbaum and the rest of the pack wander away, leaving little Charlie all alone at the defense table. Pale and vulnerable, Charlie is not well suited for this level of abandonment. He nervously looks around, his eyes darting across the barren courtroom, attempting to assess any imminent danger. His best chance is to remain still and quiet and pray that he is not spotted by a fiercer predator. You can sense his unease as the anguish of being separated from his pack begin to take hold. If he can just hold out until Daddy Rashbaum re-emerges, he will remain safe and secure. Across the room, from the witness box, a savage hunter locks onto his target. With very little movement, the Latin King patiently contemplates his ambush. Charlie is left helpless in this moment, and the Latin King knows it. His eyes remain focused, unblinking, and relentlessly trained on his victim. Tension grows with each passing second, making Charlie's odds of escape more and more unlikely. The Latin King's gaze is broken with the re-emergence of Charlie's pack. The adults of the group reconvene around tiny Charlie, completely unaware of the danger he just faced. As the elders of the group return to their mundane social activities, one can tell that baby Charlie remains shaken by his near-perilous experience. As he tries to calm himself, one can assume that he will be forever changed by what is sure to be a close brush with death that he certainly won't want to experience again.
And I'll leave you all with a riddle. What does Aladdin become after he marries Princess Jasmine? Give up?
Aladdin Kings. In fact, you were the head of the North Miami branch of Aladdin Kings, right?
Yep.